to the Rhodes Weekly Webinar. Today's topic is going to be on iPhone push and how to send push messages to your application using RhoSync. So the first part we're going to look at here is our documentation. RhoSync writing applications, there's a section called push. And so this is what we're going to follow to build our application. So the first thing we need to do is generate our RhoSync application. So we will say RhoSync app, and we'll call this my push server. And we will give it a source called product. So we'll say RhoSync source product. And then we will open that in our favorite editor. So once that's open, let's take a look back at the wiki page for reference here. To set up for push, we need to set up these settings in our settings/settings.yaml file. The real important one here is these 4 settings that start with iPhone. So we'll copy those and go to our settings file. And under development, we'll put them in here. So what you see here is the iPhone cert file is going to be settings/applepushcert.pem. It doesn't exist yet, but we will be creating that file. Since we're doing testing, we're going to have our iPhone server will be gateway.sandbox.push.apple.com. The port is 2195. So we'll save that file. Following through there, it says now start up RhoSync and set up push notifications. So we will go ahead and start RhoSync now. First we start Redis. And then we will start RhoSync. Now we can go back to our page here. So this shows us how to set up our Rhodes application to accept push messages. So let's go ahead and generate a Rhodes application. We'll say RhoGen app, and we'll call this one my push. And we'll also add in the product model, matching what we did on our RhoSync server. And then we'll open this in our editor as well. The first thing you need to do in your build YAML is add capabilities. Push. And we'll save that. And we take a look at our Google Chrome, and that's what it says here to do. The second thing that's very important. You must have the RhoSync application IP to something that is available to your device. For example, 192.168.1.10. So let's open our terminal and figure out what our IP address is. Here it is 192.168.1.104. So we'll copy that and go back to our application and change our rhoconfig.txt to have the sync server. Our IP address. And so this has to be your IP address, so when you are testing with the device, it can connect to the machine. It cannot be localhost. So we'll refer to the documentation again. It uses the iPhone push service in iPhone 3, which is now up to 4.0.2. But what you need to have this work is you have to have a push-enabled provisioning profile and a server push certificate. So we have a link to Apple's developer site here. So if we select this link, it opens up Apple's provisioning and development. Now this will be different depending on if you're doing it as an individual or a corporation. So basically just go through these steps and set up your environment for testing, having a app and SSL certifications. So we'll just go to this last step here because I've done all this already for our server. So we have this certificate name.p12. So we'll go ahead and execute this command now to generate our certificate. We'll go back to our RhoSync application here. We'll go to settings, and I put this in my documents folder here somewhere. Yep. So we'll say open SSL, and we can actually refer to Apple's documentation here. PKCS12. Our in file will be our documents / mypush.p12. Out will be the certificate name that is in that we had put in our settings YAML. So if you look here, we're going to call it Apple push cert.pem. And then you must use the command -nodes. Oh, let's see, there's no dash for the PKCS12. Import password. Since I exported it without a password, there is no password. Let's do an ls here, and we can see we now have Apple push cert.pem. I also have installed the provisioning profile in my Xcode for that matches this certificate and is push enabled. So once we do that, we can go back to our instructions, and we're just going to follow along here. Once we've done all that, the provisioning profile is set up, the certificate is set up. We just need to build this on the device. So just like our accelerometer demo, push is not available on the simulator, so we have to do actual device testing. So what we need to do is we go to our application first, and we run the command rake switch app, which sets the Xcode project to be pointing to this current application. And then we'll go ahead and open Xcode and open our RhoRunner project. So one important thing to note is that your bundle identifier here needs to match the provisioning profile and app ID you set up. When you do a push-enabled profile, you must specify the identifier instead of a wildcard. Because for most provisioning, you can do just a wildcard for your applications, but to do push, it's required to be specified for the application. So your bundle identifier here must match what is on the what you've set up on your provisioning portal in the Apple developer site. And we can look at the devices connected, if we take a look at the organizer, have the iPod Touch with the provisioning My Push installed. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and do build and run. And while it is running, we're going to open up our console to view the output. So it's installing it, it's starting it. On my iPhone now, the application has started to launch. As before, using GDB and connecting through the console is significantly slower. But what you want to see here is this line that has showed up saying device token is and a large hex string. If you do not see this message, you get a message like APS certificate invalid or something along those lines. That means something is wrong with your provisioning profile and the application you've set up. I found that it helps if you remove all of your other provisioning profiles and use only one. But it's not required. And it's just sort of, Xcode is finicky sometimes with the provisioning profiles. So now we have our application running. We can go ahead and test that our push is working. And if you look here, it says you need to see this output device token is to make sure that it is working. So the next thing we want to do is to test push from the RhoSync application. So first thing I'm going to do is, on my application here, I'm going to log in. So I'm just going to log in with the username Brian. I'm just doing this on the device in my application. Once I do that, I can go to my RhoSync console. Take a look at our users here. You can see I have a registered user. Let's see, it should show devices here. So what I need to do, it should have done when I logged in. So let me look at let's see, well I have client ID. So actually what I forgot to do is reset the database on my device. So what I'm going to do now is, because I have some leftover data on my device from when I was testing, what happens is it has some extra stuff in it here. So to fix this, we go to our Xcode organizer and remove the application. So I just select that and say uninstall, and now it's removed it and cleaned all the data. So we're going to go back to Xcode and build and run again. And so once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and log in again with the username Brian. So that's loaded. I'm going to log in on my device. We can see it's logged in here. So we'll go back to our user here, and then you can see our device has shown up. And when you select a device, you see a long string here called device pin. So that shows that our device has worked and we have now gotten it registered to do syncs. So what we can do is ping this user. So this is how we test that our sync is working. So what you have here is the message, source if you're going to sync a source, badge, which is the little icon that shows up, sounds, and vibration. And when you say ping, it will send a ping to the device. And if we show the camera here, you can see I now got a pop-up saying push message. So now I sent a ping message to the device, and if I select view, it then opens up the roads application. So I can change the message. If we go to here, back to the ping user, I can change this message to something like, you have new data. When I say ping again, you can hear my device make a ping noise. And if I go back here, you can see it says you have new data. I can dismiss the message and it'll just be back to my screen. My application is not running, I was just getting the ping message for it. So now we know that push is working for a device. We have everything set up properly. The next step we need to do is we're actually going to use push for doing our device. We aren't going to have a source adapter per se. We're going to push records to RhoSync, and it's going to notify that our device has got new records. So we'll go back to our TextMate and start setting up our application to do this. On our server, we'll go to our source adapter, and we don't want query to happen, and what we also don't want to happen is sync, because sync is what takes the result records and puts them into your database. We're going to use the RhoSync's REST API to push records to our device directly and directly into the RhoSync database. So we don't want our source adapter doing any of this work. So we've saved that, and we need to restart our RhoSync server. So we'll kill that and do rake RhoSync start. We also need to go and edit our application and let our application sync this product model. So we're going to enable sync for the product model, and we're going to put a link to it here. And save that. So once we've done that, we will go ahead and restart it on the device. So we'll go back to Xcode. Again, we're going to remove the application. To rebuild this here, we have to do a clean. And then we're going to build it and run it on the device again. So it's now installing it onto the iPod Touch. One very important thing to note is that you must have the Wi-Fi turned on or some network connection for your device to actually work. So for example, I'm using an iPod Touch to demonstrate today, and I have its Wi-Fi turned on connecting to our same access point.